Today we're playing off the red tees on an already short course. It's gonna be a lot of course management. It's gonna be fun. Let's see how aggressive but conservative we can be, and smart but dumb at the same time.
As you can already see, we are teeing off the red tees today at TPC's East Course. So this is going to be a fun experiment. So I've actually never played off the red tees on this golf course. So I thought it would be pretty fun to just see how different the course would be like. And straight up from the first hole, the view that I have here is so different from what I usually play off the blues. So over here, I do have to hit a little bit of a draw. The pin is actually on the left side of that left bunker. So I am just hitting my normal shot because I do play a draw. And I can't really see the green from where I am. So just hitting a driver and letting it go as far out there as possible.
It's a beautiful morning to be at TPC KL. What a day, what a life.
Okay, so I already know the first question I'm going to get is how did I not reach a green that is 241 yards away? So I actually did clip that tree on the left side, and so it obviously did not fly as far because of that. But my main goal for this hole was actually to make sure that I'm on the left side of this fairway, because from the right side, especially with the distance that I would have in, I knew that I would have a very awkward distance over that bunker versus where I am now. As you can see, it is direct to the green versus having to hit a shot over the bunker. Even though I am in the rough, I still would definitely prefer hitting it from this side versus the right side. I mean, this hole is definitely reachable if you hit a good drive, and obviously also maybe if it's not as wet. I don't think that if I even hit a good shot, it would have reached. It would have probably been closer, but it probably wouldn't have gotten on.
So as you can see, the tee box is actually back there. I played a draw because right side you're gonna have to chip over the bunker. Left side, even if you're in the rough, you're still having a straight shot to the green. So left side here, if you're going to hit a driver, is definitely way better.
That's true. Whenever you do it, it doesn't work out too well for the rest of the game, does it?
After an opening par, let's move on to the next hole, which is a par 4. This par 4 from the reds is still a decent length. They are 363 yards. So it's definitely still going to be a two-shot hole. This is definitely not one that we're going for the green. But we do want to hit a good shot here. From this tee box, actually, that right bunker becomes in play versus from the blue tee box where that bunker is still kind of out of reach. So obviously that's a difference there. Playing from the red tee box, a hazard actually comes into play versus playing from the blue. So as we are probably going to be able to see, just because the tee shot is closer does not mean that it is easier. So after the tee shot, I have 144 yards to the pin. Clearly, it is still very wet. It is early in the morning. We actually had the first tee time today, so that's why it is early and there's nobody ahead of us. So I am taking a little bit more club here. The pin is also behind for this green. So this club might not be able to carry it all the way to the upper ridge, but it was definitely going to be one where I'm going to be putting versus if I hit one more club longer, there is a chance that I'm going to be chipping. So I definitely went for the one that's still going to leave me on the green. And we've got a bonus treat today. We have a rainbow. I don't know when was the last time I saw a rainbow on the golf course, so I was definitely hoping to make this putt. Unfortunately, I did not, but it was pretty close. Almost had it. And guess what? A tap-in par. And we've reached the third hole, which for this hole actually there was quite a substantial difference between the blue and the red tee box. From the blue you actually carry a water hazard. From the red you definitely do not. And it is a 272 yard slightly uphill hole. And to be honest, if I was playing smart golf, I definitely would not be hitting a driver here because I already knew that I was going to be having an awkward distance in. But for this front nine, I really wanted to be as aggressive as I could be. And aggressive, as you will be able to see, has its benefits and its downfalls. So you definitely do need to choose when to be aggressive. Being aggressive all the time is not something that's going to be beneficial all the time. So Being aggressive and being conservative is actually a very important form of course management that you do need to learn, and the way you learn it is through experience. So the reason why I actually said I would not be hitting driver if I was playing smart is because the pin is in front, so I have very little space to carry, and this green is elevated, so for the distance that I had, it was just a very awkward carry. And even though I did hit it pretty good, there wasn't much spin for this green. It is a pretty hard green, so I knew that if I was hitting a driver, I was going to be having a shot like that, and if I was to be playing smart golf or if I was to be playing a tournament, I definitely would have hit something shorter just to give myself a more full shot, especially to a front pin. Anyway, we still walked away with a par, and let's move on to hole 4. So hole 4 again is kind of the same distance. It is 285 yards, but the pin position is in the center, so I knew that with a driver I would still be able to hit a pretty decent chip and still have quite a bit of green to work with. So I think this is something that not a lot of people judge as well. So if you are playing from a longer tee box, this might not be such an important thing to pay attention to. But for instance, if you're playing a shorter course, this is something that you need to pay attention to. Where is the pin in relation to where you are teeing off? So sometimes what the pros do is they work backwards. So they see the pin positions. When you're playing a tournament, obviously you would have a pin position sheet, and from there you kind of work your way backwards and see what distance you want into the green, and then based on that you see what you want to use for your tee shot. So that is another way to play a golf course, especially one that is shorter, or if you just want to play according to your strengths. If you find that there's a distance that you do not like, then you would most likely want to play the hole backwards just to give yourself a better chance at making good scores. So of course, right when I said that I hit a bad shot, actually it was just kind of like into the grain, and my club came down too steep and got stuck in the grain, and it just did not fly as far. As you can see, it's still on the green, but definitely a much longer putt than I should be having. I mean, especially from the distances that I was at, I was definitely hoping for a more realistic birdie chance compared to what I'm having now. And then I also hit a good putt, and of course this has to happen.
Woo! Ouch! Ouch! Ouch!
You got it, Kitty. I thought that was good.
I thought it was in. Yeah. And it was slowing down nicely.
I mean, am I really the queen of tap-in pars, or am I the queen of leap-out birdies? I'll leave that up to you guys. So we've reached the par 3, and I must say it's definitely a lot nicer to be hitting an 8-iron versus a 5-iron. The pin today is actually behind, so this 8-iron was cutting it a little bit close because it is uphill, and this green is 3-tiered. But you do not want to go over on this green, because if you go over, you have a very tough chip. So I took the shorter club, and I'm also hitting a half shot versus a full-fledged shot, because I would much rather just be on the green and putting for birdie. And I actually hit a good shot, and unfortunately, as you will be able to see, it actually rolled down that slope. Actually, you can't really see it on the video, but there is a third tier, which is what my ball actually hit, and it came backwards versus going forward, which obviously would have been a big difference between having a much closer putt for birdie and having this putt for birdie. Either way, it is still a putt for birdie. I would definitely have preferred it to be closer, but who wouldn't, right? So we have reached our first par 5, and I will tell you right now, par 5s are the holes that you definitely need to not be greedy. This hole right here was the perfect example, because you know, when you see a par 5, you're playing off the red tees, you immediately think you need a birdie. At least a birdie, right? And that is the worst possible thing that you can do, because you're not focusing on each shot, you're focusing on the outcome, which is at least 3 shots away. So as you can see, I hit a bad drive here, and I actually ended up being lucky in carrying that bunker. But obviously from this position, the hole is almost like 90 degrees left, so I was definitely in a really bad position. I had to just lay it up, and as you can see, I couldn't hit a very hard shot either, because if I hit it too hard, I would run out of fairway. So I just punched that out no more than 30 yards, and because of that, I still have a very long shot into the green. Definitely not what I thought I would be having at the tee shot. So biggest mistake there is always being too greedy. At the end of the day, a par 5 is still a par 5, whether it's from the red, white, or blue tees. So hole 7, like the other par 3, it's definitely very nice to be able to hit a pitching wedge, versus when the tee box is behind and the pin is behind, this hole can be all the way up to 190 yards from the blue tee box. So it's definitely a lot nicer to be hitting a pitching wedge, because I know that even if I do miss this, I'm not going to be in the water or in the bunker. At worst, I'm just gonna have a long putt. So I didn't even hit that very good, and as you can see, that's why I'm a bit short, but I still gave myself a birdie putt. Obviously, when you're playing shorter, the chances are your misses will be better because you're hitting shorter clubs. However, as we move on to hole 8, that's something else that I do want to discuss, because hole 8 is a par 4. This is a decent length par 4. Again, it's 360 yards even from the red tee boxes, so it's not one that we can go very close to the green, but it's actually one that I would prefer, because from here I could actually hit a full second shot versus that awkward distance like I was saying for the first few holes.
So one thing I'm working on is my aim. I have a tendency to aim very right, and I think a lot of you guys noticed that. Just because I used to play such a draw and now I hit it pretty straight, so I'm so used to aiming right, so I just really got to try and adjust for that. But another thing is because when we have these shorter clubs, we tend to want to be more aggressive. So when you miss it, actually you miss it in more trouble, because you're taking more aggressive lines. Of course you're hitting shorter clubs, but it's like, if you miss, it's no matter what club you hit, if you miss, it's still going to be a miss. So I feel like you do still have to choose really good targets, because unless you're really on your game that day and you're just hitting it super solid, then yeah, just don't worry about where you're gonna miss it. But you do have to make sure that you do give it a little bit of leeway, because when you're going straight for the pin, chances are there's more hazards in play, versus if I'm playing further behind, and then I would have obviously be more conservative. So when I'm more conservative, I actually take more hazards out of play. So that's one thing that you definitely have to watch out for when you're playing this short.
So I thought it was kind of funny that I recorded that right after I said what I said on the previous hole, which is when you miss with the shorter clubs, chances are you would take less hazards into play. But I think that what I can observe is that when I talk about hazards, like, for instance, if I'm hitting shorter clubs and going more for the pins, there will be more hazards in play. For instance, bunkers, things like that, maybe missing it in a rough that you short side yourself, and that's kind of what goes into when you're playing more aggressively, versus the hazards that I was talking about on that par 3, which is more like water hazards, things that can make your score a lot higher. Things like that obviously come more into play when you're hitting longer irons versus when you're hitting short clubs into the green. So I think there is a difference there when I say that, when you're playing short courses, short holes, in general, you would take more hazards out of play. For instance, hazards that would cause things like double bogeys, such as water hazards and OBs, but you might have other kinds of hazards such as rough, maybe really thick rough, because you short side yourself when you miss the shot that you hit into the green. So I think to sum it up, what that means is that no matter which tee box you play from, it's never going to be easy in that sense. There are always going to be hazards. It might be different kind of hazards, but you do always have to play smart, play course management, make sure that you're managing the golf course well. And as you can see, I played off the red tee box, short course, and I just made 9 pars in a row and not a single birdie. So let's switch it up for the back 9, and we are just gonna play smarter golf and see if that changes the game. So right off the bat, hole 10, the driver is in the back and we're hitting a hybrid. So a hybrid is definitely going to clear those bunkers on the right side, and there is quite a bit of distance to the water hazard in front of the green. But the reason why I chose a hybrid is because I played the hole backwards, like I mentioned previously. So I measured the kind of distance and club that I would want into the green versus the club that I'm hitting off the tee. So I hit a hybrid so that I would have a full shot into the green. As you can see, I had 102 yards here. Because of my lie, I am taking a little bit more club, and I'm hitting a full 48 versus a 52 that I normally would, and I ended up leaving myself here for a good little 8-footer for birdie.
Nice. Is that your first?
Yeah.
Yes!
So I wish I could say that I was making this up, but course management is already winning. It only took 1 hole to make a birdie using course management versus 9 holes on the front where I just left myself with awkward distances, feeling uncomfortable, and just never gave myself the full shot that I would like into the green. So for this second hole, I'm hitting a 3-wood because of the bunkers on the left side. So actually this was not the right club, but I definitely thought that it was when I hit it. So the idea was right and the execution was good, but what I didn't know was I actually hit it to the smallest part of the fairway. Obviously, I hit a good shot, but if I were to replay this hole, I would have either hit a driver or a 5-wood because this 3-wood was actually right in line with the bunker on the left side. But luckily for me, it worked out this time. I hit it on the green and had a putt for birdie. For this pin, you really don't want to go for it. So even though I had a pitching wedge, I still played it a little bit more safe and went towards the right side because anything left just kicks over or kicks left. And as we can see, Queen of Lip Out Birdies strikes again.
Oh my god.
She laughed and cried.
It's okay, don't cry.
The second time today. I kind of think it's good. It's not freaking going in.
So we have reached the first par 5 of this 9. I am hitting a 5-wood. It is a very short hole because it is such a big dog leg, especially from this tee box. You could really go over the bunker, but as we are playing more safe, I am going towards the right side because I know that I can still reach the green from there and I didn't really have to take the left side and the danger of being OB into play by aiming to the right side. So as you can see, it's only 170 yards. I am hitting a 6-iron instead of a 5 because I figured it'd be better to be short. Even if I did miss it, it'd be better to just chip it up versus having to putt downhill because it can be a pretty severe slope if you hit it over. I did end up hitting it short, exactly like I said I was aiming if I were to miss, and obviously I was not aiming to hit it short. I was aiming to hit it on the green, but I just did not hit it very solid. But as I said, sometimes you do have to aim for your miss, and sometimes when you're lucky enough, a miss can still become a birdie.
Birdie! She's not happy. I'd be jumping for joy. These women are too much, their standards are too high.
So we'll move on to hole 13, and remember what I talked about just now about not being greedy. This is the perfect example here. We have a short par 4. You know, it is bunker lined in front, and I was thinking my 3-wood can definitely get there. Let's hit a 3-wood versus hitting something like a 5-iron, which would allow me to hit a full shot into the green, which is really what you need on this hole because it is a tough green to hit, and anywhere that you're going to be outside of the green is going to be very difficult, especially when you have awkward distance. And because of that, I ended up in this awkward position. I was just very lucky to even have carried that the tree is not in my way. But as you can see, there are tree branches hanging in front, so I can't hit too high of a shot, and I can't hit a low shot because there's bunker in front of me. So this is what you call being greedy at the wrong time, resulting in you having to scramble just to even get it close to the green. So this again is another example of a hazard like what I was talking about in the front 9. This is probably the furthest place that I would go to if I was playing from a further tee box because I wouldn't even have tried to go for the green when it's so narrow when I have to hit something like a driver. So when you're playing a shorter course and you get greedy, this is definitely something that can happen. And as you can see, mistake after mistake, that's definitely not what we're going to do. I just basically had no shot there, and instead of hitting it left and playing that really safe shot, I just got even more greedy, and now I am in another bad position.
Yeah, mine was left to right. Told you there's a ghost here. That's what they told me. This is my favorite hole.
All jokes aside, let's move on to exhibit B of Jen being greedy. As you can see, driver comes out on a hole where it's completely unnecessary. I was just trying to carry the water here and be cute, and I hit a decent shot. It wasn't a bad shot, but I ended up being so super lucky because look how close I was to the water hazard. Any more left and it would have been in a water hazard on a hole where it was completely unnecessary. So I don't know why I just went on a little rant here where I just thought that I would try to be cute and try to be aggressive again when it was working perfectly fine for the first few holes. I guess that's just golf, even though you tell yourself all the time you should just play it safe, it is so hard to see a short hole and not try to go for it.
80 yards. What did I say just now? 80 yards. My problem is it looks very near for 80 yards.
You want to borrow my 56? or 60?
Okay, in the hole.
Well, 58.
Hole in one.
Good.
Please. Ah, nice shot. Yes!
So we have reached hole 16, the par 5 that definitely plays a lot different from the red tee box because, as I mentioned before, different hazards come into play. So I cannot aim it towards the left side like I normally do because I can reach those bunkers from this tee box. But as you can see, I ended up very close to not being able to carry that water hazard. So I basically had just enough to carry it. So this hole definitely plays a lot different from the red tee box, and it's kind of a risk reward kind of hole. And as I said, I don't know what happened here. I don't know why I'm in the rough to a par 5 where it is playing still a pretty far distance to the pin. It was at least 230 yards, and I'm trying to hit a 3-wood over that tree. I really don't know what kind of brain fart I was going through during these few holes, but I was just making mistakes after mistakes and being aggressive unnecessarily. But you know what? I guess you guys can learn from me. You see, sometimes it just does not pay off to take risk because it's not a smart risk. It is just being stupid at this point. So let's be honest, I could have hit to where I am right now with a 7-iron and not have hit the tree and still be on the fairway rather than in the bunker. I'm just making my job a lot harder basically.
A great spot.
You're aiming right, Jess.
Very far right.
Like you're aiming right up the staircase. You know that big bush right up the staircase? Thank you so much.
It's the first time on this tee box.
Where are you trying to aim? The staircase?
Yeah, close to that.
Oh, nice draw.
Yeah, that's a good shot.
Hole in one.
So if you guys have had aiming problems in the past, I'm sure you know how difficult it is to fix that because to our eyes it just seems like we're aiming straight. So it is really difficult, but it's just something that I'm going to have to work through, you know, something that's going to take some time, but I am going to train my eye continuously to be able to get over that. And here we have my birdie putt on this hole.
Oh my god!
Oh my god.
Nah, it doesn't work.
More raw.
That's easy to fix.
What
They
is...
called it stop in.
Was there
Tripod broke means it's the end of the video. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Obviously, it was my first time playing off the red tees, which I thought was quite ridiculous as well. Why would we not play off every tee box? Every single time we play off a different tee box, it proposes different challenge. As I have mentioned, and as many of you guys know, tee box is not gender specified. If you can, play off different tee boxes, make the same course that you play every day different, challenge yourself, give yourself something new to be excited about every single day. Keep enjoying golf, and I'm sure this game keeps you on your toes enough, but do change it up whenever possible. Thanks for watching, guys.